The way you eat that 6 months before pregnancy
Mm.
will determine whether your precious child is healthy or sick. It absolutely determines it, and you need to know that the advice that the American Pediatric Association is giving you is not going to give you a healthy baby.
This Olde Homestead is about the rediscovery of traditional practices, generational wisdom, and the ancient paths that got lost somewhere along the way. My guest today could not be better suited to help us toward that end. You probably know her as the author of Nourishing Traditions Cookbook. Sally Fallon Morell is president of the Weston A. Price Foundation and owner of New Trends Publishing. She has authored, edited, and published many fine books on diet and health, all of which are linked below. Sally and her husband also own a farm in southern Maryland. P.A. Bowen Farmstead is a pasture-based farm that produces artisan raw cheese, whey-fed woodlands pork, and pastured poultry and eggs. Sally has degrees from Stanford University and UCLA. She speaks French and Spanish and is interested in music, gardening, metaphysics, and of course, cooking. She lives in Brandywine, Maryland, is the mother of 4, and has 5 beautiful grandchildren, all brought up according to Nourishing Traditions principles. Without any further ado, please sit back, relax, and join me for this conversation with Sally Fallon Morell. Sally, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome.
I'm thrilled to have this conversation with you. Meeting you right now is such a joy because you are really a household name in our family. Nourishing Traditions is a go-to book in our kitchen. In fact, it's
Color
probably
of butter.
it's probably the go-to book, really. We homeschool our kids, and our oldest daughter just got done doing a nutrition class, and she used that book basically as the main resource for the class. So she's learning a lot. We, on a daily basis, we soak grains, we take cod liver oil, we drink raw milk, we consume outrageous amounts of butter, but it wasn't always like that. So it was probably about a little over 10 years ago that somebody put a copy of Nutrition and Physical Degeneration in my wife and my hand. And that book was amazing. I mean, ultimately, I don't know if I realized it at the time, but ultimately it changed our lives. And just for the sake of my listeners, and Sally can do this much better, but from my perspective, this book, Weston A. Price was a dentist, early 20th century, sorry. And he was going around the world and looking at indigenous peoples that, places where they had not been sort of tainted by a Western diet. And they were just the healthiest people in the world. And he took photographs of not just their teeth. I mean, he was a dentist, but their facial structure. I mean, we're talking wide faces. Their noses were wide. I mean, they very, very healthy people. Their teeth were completely intact. Their palates were wide. And all of those sort of markers for general health, they're the most robust and healthy people in the world. And just happy people in the world too. The smiles were just contagious. And you can see there's of all these pictures, and it's from different places. There's untouched parts of Ireland, I think an island off of Ireland, Switzerland, and then many places in Africa and other places around the world. And then there were comparisons. So you might even have family members who lived a few miles or 100 miles away at a port city where they were eating a Western diet, canned foods, a lot of sugar, things like that. And he also documented them. And so you can see the difference between these brothers and sisters in some cases, that the health is written all over their faces or the lack thereof. And so that really resonated with us. And that's kind of my take on it. But Sally, I want to hear your story. So could you just tell us a little bit about how did you come across Weston A. Price in the first place? Was this something that you were predisposed towards? Or did you just find it out of the blue? I mean, tell us about that story. What did that look like for you?
Well, I certainly was predisposed for it because I grew up in a household where everybody liked to cook. My parents were, I like to say, they were the original foodies.
Mm-hmm.
And we cooked, we were Francophiles. We cooked with lots of butter and cream and eggs. And then my first child came along, and I started out the same way, lots of butter, cream, and eggs, and she was very healthy and happy. But that's when this terrible message started to come out that low fat was better, low fat, low salt, high fiber. And I just knew that that was wrong. I knew that if you fed children that way, they'd be cranky from day one and hard to manage. And so I discovered Dr. Price's book in a bookstore in 1974 and read it immediately. And like you, it had a profound effect on me. And basically, what that effect was, don't pay any attention to what the dietetics press tell you, because that's not how healthy people ate. They sought out the butter. They wanted the fattest parts of the meat. As Dr. Price said, lean meat was given to the dogs. Wanted the fat, they ate the organ meats. They did everything they could to get the fat and the nutrient-dense parts of the animal. So I had three more children, and each one was healthier than the last because I was learning new things and eventually introduced cod liver oil into their diets. We learned to like liver. I never could introduce raw milk because I couldn't get it, but my grandchildren drink raw milk. Anyway, so when my youngest was 5, he was in school full time. I had time, and I decided to write a cookbook that that could share my recipes because I was really a cook. I love to cook, and put Dr. Price's findings into practice. And along the way, I met Mary Enig, who helped me with the science part of the book because I didn't really know that. And she was a lipid expert. So we did the introductory parts together. And it came out in 1996. The second edition came out in 1999. It started off very slowly. I didn't know what I was doing, but it just started to take off by word of mouth, and up to 800,000 copies now.
Wow.
And been very influential, and that's very gratifying. I love to hear about families like your own who benefited from the book and raised healthy children. That's what it's all about. If we can't figure out how to keep our children healthy, we don't deserve to be here. And we won't be here. Our ancestors will not be here unless we figure this out. And then in 1999, Mary and I and a few others set up the Weston A. Price Foundation to kind of keep all this going and help people. We're an educational foundation. We help people learn about this in different media and podcasts or pamphlets or scientific articles, whatever you like. But we just want to get this knowledge out there.
So obviously, Weston A. Price is a big influence on you, but wanted to ask you, who are your other heroes? I mean, who are your other heroes? Whether it's somebody who's since passed on or they're still alive. I mean, who else's work has really resonated with you and impacted your life and your work?
Well, I think Mary Enig for sure. Her work really influenced me. Tom Cowan's work, his work on the no virus business and what really causes disease. And we've done 3 books together. So
yeah, we've read, my wife and I have read some of those books too. So just let's back up a little bit. And I'm probably flying into this knowing, being familiar with your work, being familiar with Weston A. Price, and I've given a brief introduction, but could you just go a little bit more into detail for my listeners? Just, I mean, maybe a long elevator pitch, but if you're talking to somebody who doesn't know anything about your books or anything about Nourishing Traditions, what is it all about?
So, what was the basic characteristic of these healthy diets? Because he was all over the planet. The Swiss diet was very different from the Alaskan diet or the South Seas diet. Some of these diets had no plant foods at all, and some had a lot of carbohydrates. Some had dairy foods and some didn't. So what was the underlying characteristic of all these diets? And the 2 words we use are nutrient density, because he analyzed these diets in his laboratory back in Cleveland, and he found that they were very high in minerals, 4 times higher in all the minerals, not just calcium, but iodine, magnesium, manganese, whatever, than the American diet of his day. But even more important, and this is where we really put the emphasis, they were very high in the fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, and K, 10 times higher than the modern diet, than the diet of his day. And where do we get these vitamins? Well, we get them from all the foods we're told not to eat. We get them from butter, especially from cows on pasture, whole milk and cheese from cows on pasture. We get them from egg yolks, not the whites. I mean, you can eat the whites, but the yolks are the important part. Cod liver oil is a very important source. Animal fats, poultry fats. Poultry liver is our best source of vitamin K. And liver in all cultures valued liver. And we need to learn to eat liver in one form or another, whether it's liverwurst or liver and onions, pate, um,
Liver mush.
desiccated liver,
Here in the South, the people talk about liver mush a lot.
liver mush. Scrapple is something we eat here in Maryland,
Mm.
which is made with pig's liver, and we eat it for breakfast. And people are really do eat it here. I mean, there's quite a display in the local market, and that's made with pig's liver. So we need to get these foods back in the diet. We've worked very hard to get raw milk back in the diet because this is a wonderful nutrient-dense food. And we've made tremendous progress. We have a website called realmilk.com. And when we started realmilk.com, it only listed about 20 sources of raw milk in the whole country. And now it lists about 3,000, and there's many that are not listed. And we've liberalized the laws in many states. So raw milk is really thriving. It's all the influencers are pushing raw milk. Bobby Kennedy drinks raw milk. So we've really made progress on the raw milk. Um, other things I'd like to see getting organ meats back into the diet in an easier way, like having them in the hot dogs or sausage or whatever.
Mhm.
But yeah, and then we have 400 local chapters all over the world, and about 350 in the United States. So they can help you find the local foods and, be a resource for you. Yeah, so little by little, we're not flashy. We're just kind of quiet in the background. We're there when we're not going to come out and try to convince you.
Mm. Mm.
But once you've had that little spark in your head, it may be that your children are not thriving and you think, I need to do something differently here.
Yeah.
But we're there for people when they're ready for us.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to, it kind of leads into my next question. I feel the same way. We don't, people notice that we eat differently and sometimes they ask what it is. And I'll just send them to the website. I'll just say, just peruse westonaprice.org, see what you think. That's pretty much, in a nutshell, what we try to do.
Mhm.
And I did that once not too long ago. And this is a guy who gardens, he grows a garden
Mhm.
every year. But he works a lot, and he just pulled it up on his phone and it was so fast. I don't know how he was able to read anything. But he said, well, this is great and all, but you can't do any of this stuff. Like it's
Oh, why
just
not?
maybe it's just too hard, too
Yes, yes,
inconvenient, right?
yes.
I mean, if you're
People
going to
just
be
want to go
constantly,
buy an energy drink and some bag
Mhm,
of chips. Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So I think that's kind of what he was getting at. But so I think that I'm not going to ask you but what do you say to those people? Because I'm sure you come across them. Is there some way that
Well,
you kind of pare it down to, not try to convince them, but just say, hey, this little nugget might get you thinking about it?
you could say yes. Well, never mind. There's a lot of things you could say.
Sure.
Well, I don't say anything if they don't ask any questions. But
Yeah.
if they do ask questions, then I try to help them find the raw milk. One of the things I say is if you don't do anything else, eat butter. Don't do the spreads and the margarines.
Yeah.
And have a good breakfast. Have eggs and bacon for breakfast. I mean, don't tell them anything weird. Just so it's so much better for you than cereal.
Yeah. 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 I'm remembering, So sounds like from your bio, you used to live in California, or did you just go out?
Yeah, I grew up in California. Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in Southern California, and we would oftentimes go down to Mexico. I remember twice I went on a mission trip down there. We were there for 2 weeks, and we'd stay with host families.
Hmm.
And this is not real. I mean, this is kind of, we weren't eating cereal. I mean, we were eating sort of the normal Mexican food.
Yes.
But for breakfast, it was the same as, the Mexican food you'd eat for lunch or dinner. It was just in a slightly different form.
Oh,
And I remember
interesting.
thinking, that I didn't realize this until I was kind of thinking about it more recently. I knew at the time I was hardly hungry for lunch, and we were going out and we were working hard. We were out in the
Hmm.
sun, and normally I would be just itching to eat lunch, maybe 11 o'clock. And I was hardly even hungry when lunch came around, and we were working really, really hard. Just because I'm sure we did have butter with the meal. I'm sure we did have
Oh, you
meat.
probably had lard.
Yeah,
Lard was the cooking fat. That's
right.
you
And
want,
I don't know
if
how
you're,
necessarily healthy the meat was, but we were having meat. And
yeah, yes, yes. If
so,
you don't get fats with the meal, good fats, you tend to get low blood sugar between meals, and that's when you want to snack, bring
right.
that blood sugar up again. And that blood sugar roller coaster is one of the worst things you can do to your body.
Yes.
It's constant stress.
Um, so, okay, but kind of along the same lines, is there something about the preparation, I mean, soaking grains and fermenting things? Is there one little aspect of that that you really just love more than the rest? Or maybe the opposite. There's something that you're kind of like, I wish this was a little more convenient to do.
Well, I have to admit, I don't make bread. I don't have time.
Mm,
I buy, but I spend a lot of, I buy expensive bread.
hmm
So organic sourdough bread. And if I don't eat sourdough bread, if I just eat regular bread, I don't feel well.
mm,
And I have a very sensitive digestion. If I'm making sure everything's prepared properly, then I have no problems.
yeah,
I do soak my oatmeal overnight. It takes 2 minutes to put that oatmeal into soak, not
yeah,
hard.
yeah,
And I'm famous for the pancakes in the book. They're one of the most popular recipes. I think freshly ground whole wheat berries soaked in yogurt. It's easy.
yeah,
You
yeah.
just get used to it. It's easy.
Yeah, it's not that hard, is it? I mean, it's different. It's new when you first start doing it. You got to remember to do it the night before. Uh,
Yes, you have to think ahead.
yeah,
That's a good habit in life.
yeah, no, it
And the
really is.
problem today is people don't think ahead about food. They work and all of a sudden they're hungry and they just grab the closest thing to them. Um, One of the things I say to guys who are out working, job or something, take your own lunch. At least think ahead to take your own lunch so you're not grabbing garbage.
Hmm.
And I can tell you when you're eating real food and good fats, you're much less likely to have an accident.
Mm,
An accident can ruin your life, actually.
sure. Yeah. Yeah, I have to credit my wife really because she's the one that has really gotten into a stride with this. I mean, she does, I'm not opposed to doing it as well, but she just does it and she's made a habit of things. And I know
Yeah,
when
you
she,
get in the groove
oh
and
yeah,
it just becomes second nature. And honestly, if you're organized about it, it doesn't take any more time, really.
right. Yeah. Yeah, we think, maybe a few more dishes, and that's something
Yeah.
that would help out with a
Well,
lot.
that's your job.
Exactly, right,
That's
right.
the husband's job.
But yeah, I know when she's thinking about going to bed because, she's out there and she's, got the grain mill out and she's just grinding something and putting, soaking it and we'll put it up, the oven light on and stick it in the oven, um, without turning the oven on. But, so that sort of thing. And it's not difficult, but it does take a little bit of forethought. So,
Yeah, you do have to think of it. But in the past, the traditional cultures, they had to think about their food every day or they'd starve.
right.
They had to
Yeah.
think about everything. And now we don't have to think about anything. It's just the garbage food is just right there.
Yeah. The whole purpose of this podcast and just in general, what I'd like to do is talk about whatever you want to call it, the modern world since the Industrial Revolution, this technology, and not say, oh, it would be better if we never had the Industrial Revolution. But let's look at what technology has given us and really see, is this better for us? Or, is the way that we're using this better for us is really more what it comes down to. Because I can think of a million examples of, yeah, I would much rather, be able to, if I had a chainsaw accident, just drive down to the hospital, the ER, and them take care of me. I remember we had a lot of the things that we do when we were younger, when we were first married, we were going to a chiropractor, and he gave us a lot of nuggets of truth. But one of the things he would say is, talking about modern medicine and how people are just, heavily, treating things with medication, and you're just practicing treating medicine. A lot of times not helpful, but he has nothing against first aid. I mean, it's
Yeah, of
a
course. Yeah.
wonderful thing. It's a blessing
Yeah.
to be able to preserve life and a lot of different ways with this technology. But we do need to think about, how we're using it overall. And
Well, we say technology is servant.
mm,
So we don't want the technology to control us. We want to pick and choose the technology that we're going to use. And the chainsaw is a perfect example of something that's been refined and improved
right,
over the
exactly.
years. And think how much easier that makes life keeping trees under control, which you have to do or they'll take over,
Right.
you know?
Mm,
Yeah, so we soak our grains and then we cook them on a stove. That stove is a wonderful piece of technology. But
exactly.
something called an extruder is how they make the grains into cereals. That's not such a good piece of technology that we should be
Mm,
using. And let's face it, none of us want to go back to days when we didn't have electricity and the internal combustion engine. That's what's made life comfortable and much more egalitarian.
mhm.
I mean, we live like kings compared to the aristocracy in the past. We're
Right.
more comfortable, we're more entertained, our bellies are fuller, light in the evening. Um, People talk about going back to the good old days. They weren't actually such good old days.
Sure, sure.
So technology is wonderful,
Yes.
but along the way, a few bad things have happened, and we need to um, kind of take things in hand to make sure that our bodies haven't changed. So we still have to eat the same kind of food to be healthy.
Right.
So we need to take things in hand, take control of what we eat.
So, another one of your books that I don't have a copy of because my wife gave it away to a young mother is the baby book.
Yeah.
And she said, I asked her before we came on, I said, is there anything you want me to ask Sally? And she says, well, please just tell her that I love the baby book.
Oh, thank you.
And I gave my copy away to a young mother in
Yeah.
hopes that she would benefit from it. And I mean, she's probably going to do that again. If we ever get another copy, it'll probably be for the purpose of
Yeah.
giving it to somebody
Well, you don't
intentional.
want to keep that knowledge. And what you do, the way you eat, that 6 months before pregnancy
Mm,
will determine whether your precious child is healthy or sick. It absolutely determines it. And you need to know that the advice that the American Pediatric Association is giving you is not going to give you a healthy baby.
mm,
So you need to eat these nutrient-dense foods, especially foods rich in vitamin A, to prepare for pregnancy. You want to have minimal medical interference during labor and delivery. You say no to all the vaccinations. They're all horrible poisons. And breastfeed if you can. And if not, then we have the homemade baby formula made with raw milk, which has nourished thousands and thousands of children.
mm,
And by the way, that page on our website about the baby formula is the number one visited page we
mm.
have.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, and then they go to realmilk.com and find the raw milk, and that formula is a little bit complicated to make. You have to do it
Mm,
every day. Takes 10 minutes a day, but it's very good training for the next 18 years because honey, you're going to be cooking every day
hmm.
and you need to get used to it and get in the groove for that.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and just to be clear, husbands and wives need to be doing
Involved,
that for six
absolutely.
months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know in my my daughter and son-in-law's, my son and daughter's case, my daughter's husband does the dishes, and my son does the dishes for my daughter-in-law because they're the cooks in the
Hmm.
family. And that's the way it should be.
Yeah. And I was really getting at too that the fathers need to be eating well.
Oh,
Just the
yes,
mom thing.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just as important.
Yeah. I mean, we've actually known, sad, but over the years, so many people, on the pill or doing different things. And then when they're trying to have kids, they're having so much trouble.
Trouble. Yeah.
And I
Infertility
really
is a
thought, yeah,
huge problem,
yeah,
huge problem. And we have seen couples who have tried and tried. They're doing IVF, that doesn't work. All kinds of things. And they get on our diet and they get pregnant. It's a high fat, nutrient dense diet.
yeah.
They take cod liver oil, eat egg yolks, drink raw milk, eat liver, and they get pregnant. So that's one of the things that's drawn a lot of people to us is because we've been able to show couples desperate to have a baby,
Yeah.
how to get pregnant.
And I mean, the advice that you're giving them and you have all this anecdotal evidence, which is really all you need for these people that are ready to heal.
Yeah, yeah.
But is
All they
there,
have to do is look at these babies.
hmm
They're so healthy and strong and cheerful. They don't cry. They have round faces. Their teeth come in straight. They have beautiful skin. Um,
are you talking about your grandbabies right now?
I'm talking about my grandchildren
Yeah.
and all the other ones that I've seen. And they're rosy, they're not pale, they're not clingy,
Yeah.
exploring the world.
Yeah.
You only have to see these babies once or twice, and you realize that this is the way to go.
Yeah.
Babies show you.
And I
And
think,
these are the young people that will change the world. They are the leaders of the future. They're the Marianne called it the aristocracy of the healthy. I call it the natural selection of the wise. With goodness sakes, we have a lot of problems to solve, but these are the children who will do it.
yeah, I've noticed, and I'll just brag on my son a little bit real quick. He and I see this in all of them too, but the energy that they have, and I mean not
Yes.
just, energy and then crash. It's a mental energy. There are
Mhm.
things that there's some difficult task or something that needs to be done. I'll put it off or I'm too busy for it. And he's just diving into hard, difficult things. Sometimes you talk about training your kids to do difficult things, and that might have to be intentional. And yeah, there's something to that too, but he'll just dive into difficult tasks and say, Dad, why haven't we done this yet? Or he'll just take things apart and put them back together. But really, I
And
mean,
they
he
have
needs to be
good
pushed to do it.
concentration too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, we've really benefited from that. We know that we have, and I'm curious. I'm sure there's some actual maybe sort of scientific studies that have been done about this sort of thing. Is there anything that you can point to, or?
Uh, Not the way they should be. We did have one gal did a survey of Weston Price babies, and they had far less asthma, allergies,
Hmm.
but it was very cursory. I don't think you can get it published in a medical journal, but somebody really needs to do the survey. And they just on the vaccination issue, there have been surveys done. In fact, Del Bigtree just published a movie called The Study about a study that showed definitively that the vaccinated were far uh, more unhealthy than the unvaccinated. There's, no question
Hmm.
coming out of this study. And it was suppressed and not published. And finally, it did get published. So
Hmm.
all of this needs to come out. And, of course, the newspapers are hiding it. They won't publish these things, but it's there on the internet. So
Yeah. I think it was Joel Salatin I heard say he was at some dinner in DC, one of these Make America Healthy Again things that
yes,
he was invited to now. It's wonderful. And somebody said, maybe it was Del Bigtree got up and he said, raise your hand if you know of or if you have a child that's been vaccine injured. And
yeah,
like half the room raised their hand.
yeah.
Um,
My brother almost died after a vaccination. Yeah.
So it's important stuff. Okay, I wanted to talk more about general things with the country, kind of trends that you might be seeing. With the foundation, are there are there things or there trends that you're seeing in this country? Positive.
Yeah. Well, for one thing, more and more parents are refusing vaccinations. Real increase in the interest in raw milk. About 20 million people now drinking raw milk. The interest in real food, and I take my hat off to Bobby and Macri and the people, in the government. They're really trying to dispel the myth that saturated fat is bad and that meat is bad and eggs are bad and get Americans eating real food again. They're stymied by the Department of Agriculture because the Department of Agriculture insisted on keeping the 10% cap on saturated fat. And that means that you can't do this in school lunches. The minute you put butter or whole milk, you exceed the 10%, or you almost exceed the 10%. So we have a long ways to go, but it's a start. It's a start.
What about other countries? So we were talking before we started the recording. Some of these books on the publishing website, it's either in Spanish, they're in Chinese. Weston A. Price went to these non-Western places,
Yeah, yeah.
brought
Well,
this
he
information
didn't go
here,
to
and now is it starting to go back out? I mean, are you?
Yeah, no, he didn't go to China, but the number one, not the number two city that comes to our website is a city in China,
Hmm,
and it's not Beijing. I don't know. I don't know what it is. This is a name I haven't heard of.
yeah.
So there's some interest over there. We have a chapter in Korea. We have some chapters in Eastern Europe.
Hmm.
So we had a chapter in Russia for a while that seems to have gone away. But yeah, I mean, there is a lot of interest worldwide. And unfortunately, in many respects, these countries are a little bit behind us. They're right in the throes of the processed food and haven't had that light of consciousness to this is not the right way to go.
Yeah. So let's talk about milk. This is the one that I really love to talk about. It was about, I think it was in 2013. We were still in California, and we may or may not have heard of you yet or heard of Weston Price. I'm trying to remember what came first this trip or if we actually kind of knew about it. But as I said, it would all kind of it was building blocks. It didn't all just, oh, hey, the lights were revealed, the lights were turned on in every area. We had to kind of learn as we went. But we went on a vacation. A friend of my wife's, her folks lived up off the Central Coast. And so we're staying up there at this campground, and her sister-in-law and her brother-in-law were nearby, and they had a cow and they had some eggs. I mean, they had some chickens. So we went and visited their little farm, and they gave us a bunch of raw milk and a bunch of eggs and things too. And we had the campground we were staying at, it was a Boy Scout campground, so there was a fridge there, and we brought all this stuff back, and we ate like kings that trip, better than we had planned to. But the raw milk floored us. I mean,
Yeah,
we just
how
we
delicious it
loved
is.
it, and we
Yeah.
looked at each other like, why did we not even hardly know this existed? I mean, I grew up
Well,
on
what state
2%.
are you in? What state are
It
you
was
in?
that was California. Now we're in South Carolina.
Yeah, well, it's always been legal in South Carolina. You can buy it
Mhm.
in stores.
Yeah.
In fact, the story we hear is, and this is 25 years ago, the dairy industry was tanking for small farmers, the conventional dairy industry. And there was an inspector in South Carolina, and he went around to all the farmers who had clean dairies and said, I'll help you get into raw milk and get your labels and get your permit. And so you can make money. And that's what he did. And he picked out the cleanest ones, and they're the ones who continued to use milk, but selling it directly.
Yeah. Right. So in South Carolina, everything's legal. You can sell it in the stores.
Yeah.
Um, just in North Carolina, which is actually, so we get our raw milk from a farmer's market up there. And, they have the weird rules where, it can't be sold for human consumption.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the way we are in Maryland. We sell it for dogs and cats.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you do with it when you bring it home is your business.
A lot of dogs and cats, and so that.
Yeah. Yeah. But and I've heard you say things, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago that you saw this as a very positive thing. You saw it as a growing industry, raw milk,
Yes, yes.
and possibly even replacing pasteurized milk on the shelf.
Well, in some states, there's more raw milk than pasteurized. And the thing is, the market for fluid milk is relentlessly declining. The dairy industry, they can't seem to figure this out. They think, oh, it's a competition from sodas or oat milk. No, it's because the kids get sick when they drink this milk. They get a tummy ache,
Hmm.
and nobody's going to make them drink it. And the same with the school lunches. They're required by law to put that little carton of milk on their tray. That's the law. You have to put it on the tray,
Hmm.
but they just get thrown away.
Hmm. Wow.
A lot of them get. So eventually those lines will cross, and there'll be more people drinking raw milk than pasteurized.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was a kid, I didn't always get a tummy ache when I drank it. I do remember I'd have milk, we drink milk all the time, but if I had a glass of milk after eating a big plate of spaghetti or something, something was wrong. And it wasn't just
Yeah,
my stomach, my whole body hurt,
yeah, yeah.
which, and
See, the proteins in milk are very fragile. They're not like meat proteins. They're not like collagen proteins. They're three-dimensional, delicate, kind of like snowflakes or something, right?
mhm,
And when they're heated, especially heated to 284 degrees, which is the temperature of ultra pasteurization, they're warped and distorted, and the body says, I don't know what is this? I don't know what this is,
mm,
and has to mount an immune response. And that immune response could be an earache, or it could be asthma, or it could be attention deficit disorder. But whatever it is, that child is not functioning properly when it gets all those strange proteins in him.
yeah,
And that's the beauty of milk, is that every nutrient is absorbed. It's very, very nourishing for the infant with an immature digestive system. So it's easy to digest. But once you pasteurize, it's very, very hard to digest.
yeah. Well, have you seen, because we've told people that, think that they're lactose intolerant to try raw milk and just see if that works better
Yeah,
for them because the
we did
digestion.
a study, and we found that 82% of people diagnosed with lactose intolerance could drink raw milk without any problem.
Hmm.
Now, there was that 18% that couldn't. There are people who can't do any milk,
Yeah,
which is unfortunate, because one of the reasons we drink milk is to get calcium. And there's no other good place in the diet except for dairy foods to get calcium. Traditional cultures who didn't have dairy foods crushed up the bones of little birds or small mammals,
hmm,
or they fermented the fish so the bones got soft. But they made a point of getting the bones. And in fact, they found a pot in China, a piece of pottery. It was a big cooking pot that, when they analyzed the residue on the inside, it was bone meal.
hmm.
So Chinese, they weren't drinking milk, but they were using the bones to get their calcium.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. He said, that all these different places don't necessarily have the same foods, but it kind of pairs
They
part
have the same nutrients. They get the
exactly.
same
Yeah.
nutrients, yes.
I think of Eskimos or up high in Canada where 90% of their diet is whale blubber, and they're some of the
Yeah.
healthiest people in the world.
Well, they're 80% of the calories in their diet is fat.
Yeah.
And you can't eat a high meat diet without having the fat, because the high meat diet will be toxic to you.
Hmm.
So they preferentially ate the blubber, the fatty meats, the marrow. Marrow is a very important food in traditional cultures.
Yeah. Yeah. And if that doesn't dispel the low fat myth, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, so can you tell us about your farm?
Oh, okay. So we bought this farm in 2009. We opened our store in 2011. We had one of the first raw milk permits in Maryland. It was a pilot program at the time.
Hmm.
And but what I really wanted to do was raw milk. And that was illegal in Maryland. And in fact, they passed a law making cow shares illegal,
Hmm.
just because of me, just to get back at me.
Oh, wow.
So we were setting up our milk room on the in the dairy, and my husband, who's very intuitive, he pointed to the corner and he said, "You're going to be selling raw milk in a few years." Well, what I managed to do was get a pet milk permit.
Mm,
And where he pointed to was where we put the chiller for the raw milk.
mm,
He
mm.
knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's our number one product. We make double from the raw milk compared to any of our other products, cheese or pork or whatever.
Hmm.
And now there's about 30 or 40 farms in Maryland that have that raw milk permit. So it's really spread, and it's even our Secretary of Agriculture is supportive of this because it gives the small farmer a way of making a living
Hmm.
we wouldn't otherwise have.
Yeah. Uh, Conventional farming.
Yeah, it's the farmers are getting the same price for their milk that they got in World War II.
Yeah.
They can't, a small farm can't make a living in the conventional system.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they go out of business. I think the number is 16 farms per week
Mm,
in this country.
yeah. So yeah, strong emphasis on local farms. Talk
Yes.
about that. What are all of the reasons for doing
Yeah.
things local? I mean,
Well, you want your
provincial,
money to
there's
stay in the community. You want to have farms and not housing developments. You want to, or data centers, right? You want to have farms. And the only way we're going to have farms is if we support those farms financially. We have something called the 50% campaign, which is to spend 50% of your food dollar on local food, raw milk, butter, cream, meat from your local farmers. And then you can spend the other 50% celebrating how small the world has become and enjoy pineapple and rice and dates and all these imported foods. It doesn't mean you have to spend all of your money locally, but spend half of it, half of that budget locally, and you will be supporting your local farmer.
yeah. So other than the getting the raw milk permit, um, is there any other government nonsense you've had to deal with the farm?
Yes. Oh, yes. So one day, a bunch of guys from the Department of Agriculture came into our store and they said, "There's been a complaint
Mm,
and we want to look at your farm." And my husband had been cutting down some trees, which he had every right to do.
mhm,
But we had an area of the farm that was wetlands. And the way you can tell it's wetlands, it has sedges instead of grasses. Okay. And they said, "You can't um, put your cows on these wetlands." And I said, "Why not? They put cows on wetlands everywhere else in the country. Over on the Eastern Shore, they had cows on wetlands. Not anymore, not in the state of Maryland." And they kept finding things wrong. And I said, "You guys need some kind of booklet or brochure that tells us what we can and cannot do." And they said, "Oh, the farmer just has to figure that out for himself." So anyway, every time they came to visit, there were more of them. At one point, it was me against, 12 people. Um, and we were having an email exchange that included their boss.
mm,
And I said it again to everybody. I said, it's really not fair that we don't have some kind of booklet that tells us what we can do. And the boss said, "But we do have a booklet. You mean they didn't tell you?" And they deliberately not told me. And he gave me the URL, and you could get it online. And in that booklet, it said that you can do agricultural activities on wetlands as long as they remain wetlands.
mm,
And I uh, emailed right back and I said, "Well, as far as I know, uh, having cows on pasture and on your property is an agricultural activity. Unless something's changed, that's an agricultural activity. And we're going to keep our cows in the wetlands. Thank you very much. And please don't come here anymore because you lied to me." So they went away.
mm. Well, good. I'm glad that.
But they were pushing this radical environmental agenda where, they said they could regulate even a puddle on your farm, instead of what the original legislation said was navigable waterways.
Right.
Oh, there were a lot of other things they didn't like. The way my husband had kind of dug a channel for the stream so that it wouldn't flood, and that really bothered them. And I said, well, you know, we'll get a permit if you want, but there was no permitting process or anything. They were just trying to hassle us.
Yeah. So, and I ask that not to discourage people. I actually want to encourage people to farm and start small farms. I mean, what is there anything,
Well, let
any
me just
advice that,
say one thing.
yeah.
A lot of people want to get into farming, have a hobby farm, whatever, and I think that's great, but you need resources. You cannot start out with nothing. You're going to need a plucker for your chickens. You're going to need lumber to make your chicken houses. If you want to have a cow, you got to have someplace to milk her. You
Hmm.
got to have a chiller to cool the milk down. I mean, you cannot start with nothing,
Yeah.
and you cannot start without an income. Somebody's got to have an income.
Yeah.
So I think it's a wonderful idea, but you need to be very realistic about the finances because these farms are sinkholes for money.
Hmm. Yeah.
And yeah,
That's
just
good advice. Yeah.
be aware. Yeah.
And is there any other advice that you would give to somebody who's kind of in that? I mean, here we are in the homestead tsunami, and a lot more people are thinking about this sort of thing and maybe wanting to produce more food for themselves and maybe their neighbors too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lovely idea. The Weston A. Price Foundation is not a homesteading organization. My concern is getting these foods to the single mom in Brooklyn,
Hmm.
living in an apartment in Brooklyn. So it's getting these foods to everyone. Now, it's great if you can produce these foods, but that's not our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is, sure, getting lots of people to produce them, but getting these foods to everybody.
Mhm. Yeah. I want to talk about your books a little bit. So you've written many, you've been involved with the writing of many more. What's one, I mean, what's your favorite book project that you've worked on?
Oh gosh, I love doing The Contagion Myth with Tom Cowan. It was a
Hmm.
very timely book, and we wrote it in 2 months because we needed to get it out there.
Hmm.
And then we worked with Tony Lyons at Skyhorse Publishing, who was just a dream to work with. We had a wonderful editor, and that book has sold well. It's made a real impact. So that was kind of a fun book to write. The baby and child care book actually now outsells Nourishing Traditions. You know, that was like Nourishing Traditions, slow to take off,
Wow.
but now it's really, you know, doing very well.
Yeah.
And it's word of mouth, word of mouth.
Hmm. Yeah. Like my wife, that's the baby book was the purple book, and this is the
The,
yellow
the
book.
purple book and the yellow
You gave
book,
her a
and
purple book away, so we're gonna have to get more.
yeah, yeah.
Um, okay. Uh, just tell us a little bit more about yourself. I know in your bio you
Oh,
say you like music. What kind of music do you like?
oh, I used to play the piano pretty well,
Okay. Okay.
but I just don't have time anymore. And you know, it's
Sure.
very discouraging for a pianist or a musician to put it down and then come back
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's
So,
that's good. My daughter, who I was telling you was doing, a nutrition class with your book. She's playing the piano.
oh, well, good. I
And
think
she's
all
doing
children
really
should
well.
have music education. It actually makes them smarter.
It does.
It's something about training and disciplining your fingers uh, affects the overall intelligence.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that too. Which is kind of sad that so many people don't.
Well, nobody in my family has continued the music. I had both my grandmothers were fine musicians and could play by ear,
Hmm.
which to me is like, um, you're just in awe of people who, one of my grandmothers could take any song and put it in any key. Oh, that's a little too low. Well, put it up here.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
people can do that, I just can't imagine.
That's amazing.
And the other grandmother was a music major and a voice, a soprano, and I feel like I'm just hanging on because none of my kids pursued music or kept up their piano lessons at all.
Yeah. Well, to kind of close things out, I'd like to see if there's anything you could share. Just it doesn't have to be specific, but what have you been thinking about? What do you see happening in the future for you? Projects you want to take on, or problems that you see needing to be worked on or solved?
Well, I'm just finishing up another book on natural remedies, and then I want to do one more on kind of a sequel to Nourishing Traditions.
Okay.
Then I'm going to retire.
Okay.
Okay. I'm warning everybody that I'm going to retire. And I have a real interest in Shakespeare. And I think there's some neat kind of secret things in the Shakespeare plays that I would really like to write about. So
Hmm.
I'm not going to tell you what they are, but
Now, the Nourishing Traditions, is that you said a sequel? Is that kind of a new edition or
just
more?
no, not a new edition.
Okay.
Nourishing Traditions is not going to be changed. It's kind of a historic document,
Yeah.
but a sequel
Okay.
um, with a lot more meal planning, leftovers, casseroles, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm sure you've had people giving you ideas and feedback and hey, can you do a little more of this? Or
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. The
Well,
answer is
good.
no. The answer is no. I'm so busy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sally, thank you. I mean, really from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
It's so fun to see you and to speak with you because, like I said, your work has meant a lot to my family. And not just my individual family, but my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law. Um,
Wonderful. I love hearing stories like that. And that's what it's all about is healthy children.
yeah, yeah.
And it's a
Well,
tremendous challenge we have to turn this around. My heart just bleeds for somebody wrote me the other day their child is having seizures.
hmm,
You just bleed for these children.
yeah. Well, I hear more and more stories just locally and
Mm.
otherwise where parents are seeing those things and they are looking for answers. And so, sometimes they're looking in the wrong place, but a lot of times they're not. We have our Azure drop has been just a wonderful community
Yeah,
for us. We meet all kinds of like-minded people there, and it's a similar thing where we can kind of share resources and share information.
yeah.
People are
It's nice to have a group because you're kind of outsiders.
yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
I'm a little bit
I
outsider.
really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.